We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a business, Mr. Beale.
Go on without me. Just go.
A good soldier never leaves a man behind.
Because I wouldn't give you 2 cents for all your fancy rules if behind them they didn't have a little bit of plain, ordinary, everyday kindness.
Life, finds a way.
All right, we're recording. Good to go?
Good to go.
Welcome to Silver Screen Biases. Each week we pick a movie off of IMDb's top 250 and dig into it. We're examining truth claims in critically acclaimed movies while also examining our own biases. I'm Nelson.
This is Jeff.
And this week we're doing Paths of Glory.
So, Nelson, just to make sure that the listeners don't think they're dreaming and that they get us for like one special occasion, what? This is not the normal week for us, is it?
That's right. We're usually every other week.
Yeah. Since we started.
But there's been 2 big complaints that we hear consistently with our show.
I smell.
Yeah, they can smell us. They can smell us through the podcast.
Yeah.
And then
secondly,
so I guess there's 3 big complaints.
Oh, there's
first on the list, your odor.
Yeah.
And we're working on it, guys.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
Hygiene's hard.
The second one is that people want us every week, not every other week. And then the third one is that they want to hear more of just the 2 of us. Just the 2 of us.
We can make it if you try.
And we love having guests, but we also love just the 2 of us chatting and riffing on these movies.
Keeping the romance alive.
Keeping by introducing other partners. So we decided that we'll satisfy both those requests. We're going to go weekly, and we're going to go, for the most part, every other week we have a guest with us.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Jeff?
I'm here for it. I'm down to watch more movies. I don't see how this can go bad. Famous last words. No.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. No. This is exciting. This has been so rewarding for me personally, and just the things that I've learned about myself and the things that I'm discovering about how I view entertainment. That I'm still on this honeymoon phase, maybe, 20 some episodes in.
Yeah.
Like that's just, I want more of it. Like I want to continue. Like there's a lot more movies out there.
Yeah.
And we would be
And the top 250 is changing all the time.
Yes. So yeah, no, I'm very excited about this. This was not a dictatorship decision. We did agree upon this, but just in general, I am very excited about this. And
Jeff initially disagreed.
Yeah. I said,
but I brought in the military.
I was going for once a year episodes.
Yeah.
And he said that's not enough.
We'll lose our edge if we're only yearly.
Our annual movie review of one episode.
So yeah, but getting back into the movie, Jeff, have you seen Paths of Glory before?
Not before this run. No.
Were you aware of it before?
No.
Me either. I mean, I'm not a big Kubrick guy. Not a big war movies guy.
I do enjoy military movies, but this one and I never really sought out the older films. And this is 1957, so this was one that I was just like, I'd rather watch a big budget modern rendition, like 1917.
Yeah.
Like that stuff, like I'm way more attracted to that than I am these older black and white films. So
yeah,
it was one I didn't even pursue.
The interesting thing about this is like the black and white was a choice because
Correct.
by this time
Correct.
color movies were super common. Right. Kubrick was making an intentional decision. He thought it was going to be more dramatic in black and white. I think he's right.
I mean, in World War I, just getting the facts here, World War I was from 1914 to 1918. So it definitely felt.
And World War II was already over by the time this movie's made.
Right, yeah. So for a vintage period piece, like it felt right. It didn't seem out of place, but yeah.
Did you know it was based off a book?
I didn't until after watching it, looking up notes.
Okay. Did you know that the book's based off of a true event?
No.
Yeah. So this
prove it.
This is from the Soin Corporal's Affair, Souian, pulling up my French pronunciation there, Soin Corporal's affair.
I think you nailed it.
And this is a real thing that actually happened. Now, of course, there's some dramatization for the book, and then from the book to the movie. But the broad brushstroke details of what happened here happened. Except it was 4 men executed. The barrage officer got murdered as well.
Yeah. And that makes sense because, like, just jumping right in here, this film was banned in France.
Was it?
Yeah. French did not like the negative portrayal of the French army.
Well, then
and it makes more sense knowing that there was some truths to actual
this all happened.
People, yeah.
This happened in World War One.
It was banned.
Yeah. So I'm going to just read straight from Wikipedia here. In March 1915, units of the French army holding a section of the Western Front through Champagne had seen no tangible results despite 2 months of fighting. After 2 recent unsuccessful attacks, the 21st Company of the 336th Infantry Regiment was ordered by General de Division Gerard Revilhac to retake positions captured by the Germans north of the village of Soin in the Marne. A bayonet assault would begin at 5 a.m. on March 10 against a stretch of enemy trenches that was heavily defended by machine guns and barbed wires. Several unsuccessful attacks had already left this part of no man's land strewn with French dead. However, on the morning of the planned assault, a preceding artillery barrage dropped shells on the French trenches instead of the German lines. They also plowed up the ground over which the assault troops were ordered to cross. When the first wave of troops started going over the top, most became casualties of the undamaged enemy machine guns. The remaining soldiers of the 21st Company, who were both exhausted after days of frontline duty, in 1915 French army troop rotation was much slower than later in the war, demoralized by failure, refused to leave their trenches. On hearing that the troops were refusing to attack, General Revilhac ordered his divisional artillery to bombard their positions to force them out of their trenches. The division's commanding artillery officer, Colonel Raoul Berube, refused to obey without a written order, but Revilhac did not issue one. With the failure of the assault he had ordered, Revilhac demanded that action be taken against the soldiers of the 21st Company. Its company commander, Captain Equilbay, was ordered to produce a list of names that included 6 corporals and 18 enlisted men, chosen from the 2 youngest members in every squad. On March 15th, Revilhac announced that all 24 men would be court-martialed as an example to the others. So I was wrong, it was not 4, it was 24 men.
That's not much better.
It's a lot worse, in fact.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they chose to make it only 3. Mm-hmm. Now, again, that's from the movie. That's an adaptation from the book, and I've not read the book, so who knows. Of note, and importantly, posthumously, those men were pardoned.
Oh.
So...
whatever good that does.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good for them for clearing their conscience, though.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo. So yeah, just some of the straight facts here. 1957. This movie runs about an hour and 28 minutes. Mm-hmm. Came out in 1957, like I just said, and before 1968. Which I didn't run into this with previous movies, but this movie is rated just approved.
Yes.
It's not PG, PG-13, it's just approved.
Right.
And so I had to look up what that meant. Fieldings before that were just either approved or unapproved, which means like we approve the moral content or we don't approve the moral content, saying like if it's not approved, that means that there's stuff in it that's questionable.
Right.
So with it being approved, which I would, kind of spoiling the end of our conversation here, but like it's not a violent movie.
Yes.
There's no foul language in this movie, or if there is, I missed it because it's so minimal.
No, it's very clean.
Yeah,
especially in contrast with some of other
Kubrick movies.
Very clean.
It's like this movie would definitely like for me. It felt like growing up as a kid when my grandpa would have those old black and white westerns on TV, and as a kid, like I didn't know what was going on, but like there was just something about it I knew wasn't wrong to watch, or like it didn't seem inappropriate.
Right.
This is one of those movies like even though the content was heavy. It just there wasn't a heaviness to like just what it emitted as far as just with it being on the TV. Like I didn't have my daughter in the room when I watched it, but like it was one of those things like she was not going to listen to the dialogue and the violence is minimal, like or like the implied violence is minimal. It was like it would just felt like she was watching an episode of Gunsmoke or something. So like
sure,
I agree. Like with the rating, like I just it's not a graphic movie by any means.
No, this
the
is not the
implications
first...
are heavy.
Yes,
but it's not.
But if you're not paying attention to the dialogue, you'll miss that.
It's not a visually scarring movie
This is
compared
not-
to Clockwork Orange.
Yes. Get it in there early.
Yeah, I mean, it's Kubrick. We got to stay early. Yeah.
This is not the first approved movie we've seen, though. Citizen Kane.
Was that approved?
Yes,
okay,
it's
I couldn't remember.
1941.
I don't document the ratings in
Yeah.
post episode recording. Like that's not one of the things I keep track. So okay, so
Yeah.
that one also had the same rating.
Yeah,
Okay.
1941. Now, modernly, it is rated PG.
Oh, okay.
But it was an approved rating.
Okay.
And I mean, he was a bit of a womanizer, and there's alcohol and tobacco use, and
Right.
that. Like, if that movie were made today, it might get a PG-13 instead.
Yeah.
And because it gets a PG-13, then they might take more liberties with the language anyway.
Right.
Right. I know that Stephen Kent said no movie is made better by a PG-13 rating.
Right.
I don't agree with him. For example, Deadpool as R works great as R.
Yeah.
Would not work as well as
They
PG-13.
tried that. Didn't they do an edited cut? Like, didn't
Yeah.
they do like a Christmas release or something for one of the Deadpools and made it with all the inappropriate stuff removed?
Yeah,
because
and
I remember like
he's reading it to Fred
the
Savage.
Princess
and it's
Bride.
Princess
Yeah,
Bride. Yeah.
yeah.
And it worked there because
I didn't watch that cut.
No.
I just saw that. I knew that they did that.
they did that Christmas
Yeah.
cut, and they leaned into the we're making this safe,
Yeah.
kid safe, and so they made a joke on it, and that's how it worked.
And so far, the Princess Bride reference was the best part about those two movies.
But you don't like Deadpool?
I'm not a fan. I like Ryan Reynolds, but I'm not a fan of those movies. They're just okay. That'll be on another episode. We'll talk about that
You
later.
just made me sad. I don't want to do this episode anymore. I mean, we've talked about it before. A big comic book fan,
Yeah.
and I think I've always loved Deadpool,
He does great at it. Like I mean, like
and he does a great Deadpool.
I waited till I didn't watch them when they came out, and
I saw them both. in
everyone
theaters.
hyped them up. And so when I watched it, I'm just like, oh yeah, it's good, just good.
Yeah.
Like it's not the best Marvel movie. It's not the best comic book movie. Like,
No. I agree.
And so for me, it's just like it's just good. Ryan Reynolds did a great job. He's a great Deadpool. I wouldn't
But
want any other Deadpool.
I will say, like, it redeemed how much they messed up Deadpool in
the
X-Men
Origins,
Origin Wolverine.
Yeah, no, I agree.
X-Men Origin
Colon
Wolverine.
Origin. Yeah, a couple more facts here. It is currently, as recording this episode, 8.4 on IMDb. It stands at number 60 on the top 250. 96% tomato meter, 95 audience. And just a fun fact I saw while doing notes: there are 6 movies in the top 250 that were released in 1957.
Wow.
I thought that was a fun fact. One of them being 12 Angry Men, which is in the top 10.
And that's another movie. Have I seen 12 Angry Men?
I know I haven't.
It's a court drama. I
Correct.
believe it's also a military court drama.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, so Bridge Over River Kwai, which I've heard of, The Seventh Seal, Witness for the Prosecution, Wild Strawberries. And
Wild Strawberries
Path of
is
Glory.
I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name. He's a Japanese director. We've yet to do any of his movies. He's got a bunch in the top 250.
Cool.
He's almost as prolific as Kubrick. Akira Kurosawa.
Okay.
So he's got 10 movies in the top 250 currently. Hitchcock 13, Spielberg 11, the Coen Brothers 10.
How many does Nolan have?
I don't know. Peter Jackson 9 and Stanley
Oh,
Kubrick
okay.
9.
Okay. Peter Jackson, 9?
Yeah. Let's take a look real quick. Let's take a small detour, shall
Yeah.
we?
Bunny Trail. It's just the two of us.
So
Let's keep it romantic.
this is movies that have been.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, like,
Yeah, because I'm
because that would
looking at
be 9.
because right now in the top
That'd be King
250,
Kong,
all that
that'd
Peter
be-
Jackson's got would be
The
Lord of the Rings
trilogy, not the
trilogy.
Hobbits, just the Lord of the Rings.
if we do that have been
be the Hobbits, be
just two of the Hobbits:
King
Desolation
Kong?
of Smaug, An Unexpected Journey,
King Kong.
King Kong,
Yeah.
Bad Taste from 1987.
Oh, I don't even know that one.
Never heard of it. Heavenly Creatures from
Don't
1994,
know that one.
and Brain Dead from 1992.
I didn't know he did anything else besides The Hobbit and King Kong.
Well, I mean, you don't start with Lord of the Rings. Like
Well,
you've got to have a bit of a pedigree to get
I
there.
just assumed.
But Akira Kurosawa has had 10 movies in the top 250. Of that 10, 6 of them are still in the top 250.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, but Paths of Glory, since the introduction of IMDb, this movie has been in the top 250. It has never left the top 250.
Interesting.
Its highest rank ever has been 25. But since 1996, when IMDb was created, it has been in the top 250 from that day, which is incredible. It's a big movie.
That is impressive, and it's a lot of talk for a movie that was. Well, should I get into my opinion? Or
Yeah, go ahead. Give me a bit of your opinion. Give me a taste.
Underwhelming.
Yeah.
From an entertainment standpoint, which I don't think this movie was made for entertainment.
No, it's
Like,
it's very much an
it
anti-war
is.
film.
In that case, it does a very good job. I was not entertained by this movie.
Yeah, I was enraged repeatedly.
Yeah, no, it definitely invoked emotion. Like, I was engaged, but by the end of it, I'm like, okay, I'm glad it's over. Like, not like a Schindler's List glad I'm over, like that was hard to watch, but just like okay, well, we're done. This movie was,
Yeah.
Like, I agree with the message. Like, the overall message, like, I'm not a fan of war. Just let that be stated for the court. For such a simple message of war is bad.
I'd say that this is a much more complex and complicated message than just war is bad.
War is real bad.
War is real bad.
War
Yeah.
is real
Okay,
bad.
so you did get it.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get into that as we go over some of the dialogue from this movie. There's some
meaty dialogue in this movie.
This movie,
Lots of things to break down.
This movie repeatedly made me very frustrated and angry.
Like, and do you think that was intentional, or you were getting mad at things that you don't think you were supposed to get mad at? Like,
so,
or were you saying, was it the mad that they were wanting you to get?
So it's funny because some of what made me angry was the devil may care attitude taken on some of the issues in this movie. And it made me angry. But every time it made me angry, I stopped and remembered Kubrick loves satire. And he loves very dry satire.
Yeah. Oh, this movie very much felt like a satire.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's a very unique satire.
Yeah, not comedic.
There's no
in any way.
punchlines.
Yeah, it's not comedic. The very first scene when they're walking around the table. And I get why they did it. Like, it was smart to take that big section of dialogue and bring movement to it.
I wrote the same thing.
Yeah, well, that's where I took that note from.
Oh, you're reading my notes.
I read your notes.
Yeah.
You share them. I'll read them before the show. Yeah, no, I own up to it.
Yeah, because it's a very long, dry dialogue,
and it works,
and it makes you engaged because they're moving.
But the dialogue specifically, from the very beginning, I got that satirical vibe of just like, I don't think the conversation that may or may not have actually happened in historical time, it probably went differently, but like, to evoke the emotion they wanted, they did it in a very well done way.
Sure.
The one general, I'm terrible with this movie. I'm going to be bad at names. The old guy,
Scarface.
The old guy that's trying
His
to get
boss.
Scarface. Scarface's boss.
Let's pause. Hold on. I need to interrupt before we get onto this because we're going someplace good.
Yeah, let's do it.
We missed an important detail that we always cover: the budget.
Yes.
This movie cost about $1 million, and a third of that was Kirk Douglas's salary. So good for him.
Kirk. And he earned it all in that scene where his shirt was off. Hubba hubba.
And I don't know about you, but like every time I saw him on screen, I could only see his son, Michael Douglas. That's all I can see. Their faces are so similar. Yeah. It's wild. So
but the butt chin's very prominent.
It's remarkable how similar these.
Third of the budget.
Yeah, and already he was an incredible actor, and so this movie was very, very like they had to spend a lot to get him. But this is one of the movies that he's now most known for. It's really interesting. Like they shelled out a ton of money to get him, but it was also huge for him, and that's incredible. It's kind of actually very similar with Robert Downey Jr. with Iron Man.
Yeah,
right.
And Robert Douglas just passed away
in 2020.
He was 103 years old.
Yeah,
man. What were you going to say about Downey Jr.?
Well, Robert Downey Jr. for a lot of people is Iron Man. Right? You think Robert Downey Jr. You think Iron Man.
Tony Stark is Iron Man. Yeah, no, you're right.
But
Ryan Reynolds is Slade Wilson or Wade Wilson.
For some people, yeah.
Deadpool.
Yeah, for a lot of people, Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool. But both of these actors have long and very accomplished careers before these roles.
Right.
So I think that's interesting. Now, we said about $1 million in 1957 dollars.
Mm-hmm.
That's about $10 million today. Okay, in 60-ish years, the U.S. dollar has gone down to 1/10 of its value.
Great job.
Yeah. Again, result of money printing. Now, you were saying.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Because I don't.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So Scarface's boss.
Yes.
Again, I'm terrible with names. The guy. Yeah.
We're probably gonna get their ranks wrong too.
I don't even know the rank that Scarface was. His boss. That whole conversation of telling him to take the anthill.
Yeah.
That was immediately frustrating right out the bat. I didn't think it was going to get like that emotional, right? Like I was already hating characters by the end of that conversation. So I wrote down here.
I liked Scarface in that conversation.
Well, because I mean, in that moment,
I thought he was going to be a hero of the movie.
Showed a little bit of like compassion of like, take the anthill. No. Oh, okay. Well, you were being considered for your 13th chord,
which you already deserve,
right? And then Scarface goes, "Fine, we'll take anthill." Wow, like from the very beginning conversation, we've got just this. Well, you were going to be, increase in rank, but all right. Like, and you see that same guy do that same type of manipulation throughout the movie.
So I want to talk about that for a bit.
I'll let you.
We've talked before about the Nuremberg defense. Do you remember what that is?
It's a defense that has a really funny name.
Yeah. So the Nuremberg trials of the Nazi soldiers after World War II.
Mm-hmm.
One of the defenses that was pretty common among the Nazi soldiers. And this is like Nazi command, not just soldiers. Remember we talked about in Schindler's List, the main Nazi in that movie was too low ranking to be at the Nuremberg trials. Mm-hmm. And the defense they all took was, oh, well, I was just following orders. So there's a right. So what we see through this movie, and we see it play out 3 times, is not so much the Nuremberg defense, but what's often referred to as the inevitability defense or the substitute perpetuator defense. So the guy says to Scarface, "No one would question your opinion. They'd simply get someone else to do the job." Mm. And then Scarface goes to Kirk Douglas, our hero, and says, "Oh, you're not willing to do it? Well, I'm going to put you on leave, and I'll have somebody else do it."
Yep.
And then when he wants to bomb his own men, the guy says, "I'm not going to bomb my own men." The guy's like, "All right, fine. I'll have somebody else do it."
Yeah.
Right? So in that movie, they frame Kirk Douglas and the Bombardier as heroes because even though they could be easily court-martialed and replaced,
right,
they're unwilling to do it. Now, Kirk Douglas, it's funny because all 3 of them, we have a different reaction.
Right.
The Bombardier simply refuses.
Yeah.
Kirk Douglas refuses, gives in, and then backtracks. Scarface refuses, gives in, and then doubles down,
tries to clean up his act.
Exactly.
Or clean up his mess, yeah. Now, Kirk Douglas does do a little bit of this on his own, too. Closer to the end of the movie, he's talking to the one guy, and he's like, "Okay, you will do the execution of these 3 men." And it's not necessarily manipulation, but just in like, okay, if you're willing to do this, you're going to do it, not just put it into motion. Have you ever been in front of a firing squad? Well, you're going to do it. Like,
yeah.
Just like, he does it. That's a little bit of manipulation, trying to evoke like this type of emotion of like.
I would put this as a very different thing because what Kirk Douglas does there isn't say, if you won't do it, I'll have somebody else do it. What he says is, you can't back out of this. You're doing it.
But that was after a conversation of talking about the reality of the situation.
Right.
And the conversation before, like, then him assigning him that task, knowing how he feels about it. Like,
right.
Like there's a little bit of.
But the difference is, with Scarface, Kirk Douglas, and Bombardier, we have them saying to their superior officer, I won't do it. I need to protect these men. And the superior officer is saying, if you won't do it, I'll have somebody else do it. With that, we already have, this guy has chosen a man for death out of spite. Kirk Douglas knows it, and he's going to make him be accountable for his actions and experience the full weight of his decision. I think that that's not manipulation. That's holding him accountable for his behavior, knowing that he can't simply court-martial the guy himself, even though he deserves it. The best he can do is hold him accountable.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Now, before we get into the whole inevitability and I'll replace you thing, there's a line in the opening monologue that, man, did it get under my skin.
I probably missed it. If it was right at the beginning, like when a movie starts and like, it takes a little minute to get the environment of the movie.
Yep.
And if a movie starts immediately heavy, like Schindler's List was the same way. It took me a couple passes to like, okay, now I'm in the environment of this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so I probably missed this line.
I totally agree. I started it over 3 times.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I played
You're a better man than me.
Well, I played it. The line caught me off guard, and I was like, what did he say? And I rolled back and listened to it, and I'm like, okay, I need the full weight of this, so I started over again. Successful attacks were measured in hundreds of yards and paid for in lives by hundreds of thousands. Now, at a moment you think like, wow, these men were heroic. Until you remember, these men were conscripted.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be there.
They were required.
They were required to be there. And, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, conscription is slavery. If someone's forcing you to do labor against your will, that's slavery. Pure and simple. Now, are they being bought and sold and traded like you would in chattel slavery? No, because there's different categories of slavery. For example, sex slavery isn't chattel slavery.
Right.
It can be, but often isn't. Conscription is a form of slavery. If anybody can say that they have the right and the authority to make you do work for them and you have no say, that's slavery. And there's a terrific book by Nick Watts. I strongly recommend people read it. It's linked below, called Taxation is Slavery, making the case that if somebody has the right to say, hey, 10% of the money that you earned this year from the work that you did, well, that's actually my money. Right? Well, you're now working for them against your will. So, yeah, it opens up with that line. And in the context of conscription, yards were paid for in lives by hundreds of thousands. Right then and there, this is pure evil.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the movie, it doesn't ever change the pace throughout the film. Like you just see that,
that's
like it keeps up with that same tension the whole film. Like, now granted, again, entertainmentally wise,
And
it's not like a edge of your seat type of entertainment or tension.
yeah,
Just because maybe mostly
know-
because it's like, but dialogue and intellectually, you're like, wow, that's like.
I will say from a directing standpoint, that is a triumph to be able to transition from a military drama that becomes a courtroom drama and keeps its pace.
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
But not until you mentioned it. Yeah. Shall we keep moving forward then?
Let's do it.
All right. So the Scarface, as we're going to be calling him, is walking through the trenches, giving the same conversation to every single soldier. Ready to kill some Germans? He never starts the conversation again until he's turned a corner, so that nobody's seen him have the same conversation more than once, except for the guy that's following him. This guy is a man that has told his superior officer how much his men respect him, how much he resonates, like, personality-wise with these men.
Mm-hmm.
And then this scene immediately undermines that. You're like, oh, this guy's a fraud. But he says to the one guy, I beg your pardon, Sergeant, there is no such thing as shell-shocked. So shell-shocked is a term that popped up during World War I, continued through World War II. During Operation Desert Storm, they gave it a new name.
PTSD.
But now we
right?
call it PTSD.
Yeah.
It's had several different names over the years. Now we call it PTSD.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I wasn't expecting to get into this, actually. There has been some really interesting studies about, like, LSD, shrooms, MDMA, and its effects on depression, anxiety, and PTSD.
Positive effects?
Remarkably. But, like, here's the weird
Long
thing.
term or just in the moment of use?
Long term.
Okay, so
Like-
even after use.
Yeah. So here's the weird thing. And of course, I'm not recommending people break laws, to be clear.
Noted.
But there's been studies where, like, men who have PTSD and have been tortured by PTSD for years, they take heroic doses of these psychoactive drugs.
Mhm.
And then with a specialist kind of guiding them through it and, like, making sure that they don't self-harm. And then at the end of it, they are fixed.
Mm.
It's basically like, have you tried turning it off and back on again, but for your brain? And they just don't have depression anymore. They don't have PTSD anymore. And that is incredible.
Mm.
So yeah, and I'm not saying if you struggle with any of these conditions, I am not saying go out and take a heroic dose of shrooms. I'm saying we need more study on this. But yeah, there is no such thing as shell-shocked, and we know, yes, there is.
Yeah.
Absolutely
and
there is.
Yeah, super evident. I mean, like, any war, you take any war. Like, ask someone from the Civil War, you know, like, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
'Cause
if you
it's
find
horrific.
someone from the Civil War, let me know, because I'd love to talk to them,
Yeah.
too.
We have questions.
Yeah, I'd love to get just a glimpse into what they've been through.
First person account.
Yeah. No, that is fascinating though. Like, and it's like a family member of mine, not a close family member, but he had mentioned to me that he's not a smoker of just tobacco products. He's not a smoker, but he's like, if I ever went to war though, I would start smoking. Like, I'm just like, I know I would need something, like, so like just that idea of like just having something to rely on. That's, I don't know. I think there's something there. Just there's, even if it's just emotional support, like, again, and I'm not condoning that either, but it's just it's a concept that many people have put thought in and tied to like just.
Well, here's the crazy thing, right? Like, we've got service members who are alcoholics, and that's super common because they binge drink
to numb the pain,
to cope. Yeah. And because they're under the jurisdiction of federal laws, they can't use marijuana, which we know quantitatively is great for these things and non-addictive. Is it habit forming? Yes, but that's different from addictive, right? And so like we're losing, what is it, like 25 people a day who are former service members kill themselves in America, and like most of this is tied to alcoholism. Like if we just legalized these substances, how quickly would that change? You know, but yeah, shell shock exists, right? And people cope to get with that pain, get through that pain. Not too long after that scene is when he's talking with Kirk Douglas, our hero. He says the line to Kirk Douglas, "If a man wants to be a soldier, then he must fight and fight on the front lines." The thing is, though, as we already mentioned, these men didn't want to be soldiers. They were conscripted.
Yeah, they were pulled out. Yeah.
So, and the guy that's shell shocked, he has transferred to another branch because he's a coward.
Yeah.
No, this guy doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that he's a coward.
Yeah. He
doesn't want to be there. And
those are the people I relate to the most. Like, military was never something that I think we talked about this with Connor in this. But like, military is never something I considered.
Yeah.
Like, it was always something that I admired because I have friends from high school that went into the service. Like my niece and my other niece are both enlisted in the service. Like, I'm very proud of them. It was never something I considered because I knew my physical capabilities. and for me, all I knew was I correlated military with boot camp, and I was like, I would die. So I relate to the quote unquote cowards because that would be me. Like, if I got conscripted or if I got drafted to the military, I would pray to God that I had some underlying injury or some underlying illness that would get me to be unusable. Yeah. Because like I would not be valuable to them on the front lines. Just like, because I know my capabilities and I know my mental capacity, and that's not for me. It's like I can relate to that. Like, and I don't see that as cowardice. I see that as knowing your limits.
Yeah.
You know, like there is a difference. Like,
well, also now, with Full Metal Jacket, another Kubrick film, you mentioned Connor, we saw the results of conscription and boot camp. Right. These men don't want to be there, and what happens to them? They snap.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that scene until just now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nelson, I don't think we talked about this with Connor with that movie, but like, where do you stand with war as a tool of power?
Yeah. So
are you anti-war? Like,
100%.
Okay, but do you see a necessity for it? I don't know how to word this. I'm not trying to trap you. Is there ever an appropriate time for war? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
America has only ever had one just war. To answer your question, and that was the Revolutionary War.
I was trying to think of something cunning to say to that.
Yeah, I
was trying to think of like some food fight or something.
The U.S., the American Revolutionary War, where they said, "Hey, we want the right to rule ourselves." And the king was like, but maybe you don't. And so they fought for their freedom. That, I think, is a just war. When you've got an invading army and they're a defending army. That's the only time just. And that's assuming no provocation apart from saying we want to be left alone. Right. I can go through pretty well with most U.S. military actions and wars and explain why, well, actually, this was a provocation that wasn't just a leave us alone, or what we understand as the reason that led up to this war isn't actually the reason that led up to this war. You know, the Civil War is a big one. I understand the sympathies towards ending slavery. I think ending slavery was a universal good. We are one of two countries in the world that used a war to do it. Everybody else did it peacefully. Why did within a decade of that?
There are places that have not done that yet. So just to be clear, there are countries that have not.
What I mean by though is like in that era,
Gotcha.
when almost all of the world's superpowers ended slavery, 2 countries did it through revolution. Us and Haiti.
Yeah. Haiti's much smaller.
Yes, and Haiti it was the slaves realized, wait a second, there's more of us.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And also...
And again, slavery, we've talked about this too, and we'll talk about it again. Slavery was not the main reason for the Civil War.
It was not.
The war was not started to fight over slavery or non-slavery. Like, it was states' rights. And slavery was a component of that. But like, the Civil War was not just about slavery. Growing up in an American school, I feel like that's one of the incorrect things that I was taught, and my wife would agree with me. She was also a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, every time you talk about Civil War, it's Civil War and slavery, Civil War and slavery. It did a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It was about more than that. It was started for more than that. Like,
Yeah.
But growing up, it wasn't until I became an adult that I fully realized, I was like, oh, that was just a part of it.
Right.
I always get a little like, not irritated, but just like, okay, you don't always have to correlate the Civil War to slavery. Like, there's more, there was more to it than that. It's like,
and it linked below if you'd like to hear a dissident opinion on what led up to the Civil War and who Lincoln really was. Thomas J. DiLorenzo's got a few great books on it. The one that I've read, which is linked below, is The Problem with Lincoln.
And then there's also the Matthew McConaughey movie, The Lincoln Lawyer, which has nothing to do with this, but it's a fun watch.
Yeah, and worth your time.
Sorry.
So yeah, like when you said states' rights, and there's going to be a lot of people that say, yeah, but states' rights to do what?
Self-govern.
Own slaves is what they're going to say, right? And while that is partially true, like you said,
there's truth to that.
There's truth to that. Really what it was is, we want to be our own country, just like America decided to be its own country, and you said, no, we can't.
Can the law that's within the state of Ohio rule the state of Ohio without anyone else manipulating?
Not even that.
Well, just
Like,
I said Ohio just because we're like, but that was just the idea of like whether we have a nationwide governing body or a statewide governing body. Can Mississippi rule Mississippi with no one else interfering?
Yeah, but
can North Carolina rule North Carolina without anyone else interfering? Like, that's what it came down to. Now, and all states wanted different things.
Yeah,
and that's where you get slaves, you get crop sharing, you get international trade. You know, you had the port states, you had the more academics up in the north. Like, there was education. There was there was many different caveats that came to the Civil War, other than slavery.
Right, and the biggest one was secession.
Yeah.
The biggest one was saying, hey, we don't think that you represent us and have our best interest at heart, and we want to rule ourselves.
Right.
Right? And you know, I want to say within living memory, but I'm really bad at remembering how far apart it was from the Revolutionary War.
Wait, the dates? Civil War was 1861 to 1865.
And when was the Revolutionary War?
1776 was when the Declaration was signed, but it went into the...
Yeah, but you already had the
Revolutionary War went, like, the Declaration was signed at the beginning of the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
That was the act of treason.
Yeah.
That started. That was initially, it wasn't the very beginning, but that was the start of it.
And if the colonies, the 13 colonies, were justified in saying we're going to rule ourselves, and I believe they were, then the southern states, even though they had practices that are absolutely horrible, were equally justified in saying we're going to rule ourselves.
This is going to come up again in Hamilton.
Oh yeah, yeah. Our 4th of
Hamilton's
July,
way more.
Well, it's not 4th of July, but our 4th of July-ish
movie
will be Hamilton. Looking forward to that. But Vietnam was a police action that we had no business being in. Pearl Harbor was a provoked war. The current UK and Russia war was actually provoked by us. Scott Horton's got an incredible book called Provoked that is coming out soon that's explaining that very clearly. Our involvement in the Middle East, as Ron Paul has pointed out several times, is a result of blowback. They don't hate us because we wear blue jeans. They hate us because we're over there. The U.S. has not got a great track record, to put it lightly. No. So to put it plainly,
we're also very young. Like, not that justifies our mistakes, but
if anything, it almost makes it worse.
It does. It does. Like, it just makes us like it's comparable to like a teenager going and making a stupid decision versus these countries that have been established, whether they're right or wrong.
Yeah.
But they do have some wisdom because of their longevity. We're fresh on our feet, and we're doing these things kind of just half butt. Even today in 2023, we are a young nation.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Yeah.
It shows.
Yes, I'm anti-war. Point blank.
Okay. And I know that was a broad question, but I like because there are some people that are like, yeah, like let's fight for America, like
war hawks.
like and I'm all about defending our beliefs, but like I would never want to be the aggressor. I'm not going out and looking for a fight, but I'll defend something I believe in.
Going out abroad looking for dragons to slay.
Right. Like, I mean, growing up, like whether you grow up in a Christian culture or not, like you grew up with all these different influences that show positive outcomes to war. Look at Lord of the Rings. Look at Chronicles of Narnia. Look at many of the Bible stories. There's all this romanticized views of war.
Absolutely.
Growing up. I've never been a fan. Even watching those movies and loving those movies, I'm still going, could that have been solved without a war? Could they have avoided mass casualty?
100%.
And like, I know it's a romanticized idea, but like, I don't know. It's always been something I've been fascinated. Like, can we avoid this? Like, can we just be decent human beings and dialogue this, you know? Like, sorry.
No, I agree. But as I brought up, and I don't remember which episode this was we talked about, but I know I've talked about it before. War is the health of the state.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at all the companies that profit from our wars. They have vested interest in making sure that we go into more wars.
Yeah.
As long as there is a state, there will be war.
Yeah.
Now, in Scarface says to Kirk Douglas, because Kirk Douglas asks, what kind of casualties should we expect? 5% killed by our own barrage, a very generous allowance.
And that was said so
sincerely.
Well, and so,
flippantly.
Yeah. Oh, I'll take a Big Mac, a large fry, and I'll lose about 5% of my guys. What will you have? Just like.
But hold on. It gets worse because that's 5% killed by our own barrage.
Right.
Expected to lose 60% of his men to accomplish the mission total.
Yeah.
And Kirk Douglas, based on what his rank is and what war it is, probably had 1,000 to 3,000 men in his command.
Yeah.
And was just told, 60% of them are probably going to die, and that's a loss that I'm willing to take.
And you see this enforced more with him going, fire on your own troops to motivate them.
Yep.
Like you see him go, okay, yeah, I am willing to lose my own people just to make a statement.
It reminds me of Lord Farquaad in Shrek.
Oh yeah.
Some of you may die, but that is a risk that I'm willing to take.
Yeah. Classic.
But this is not even like some of you may die. Like, I'm expecting 60% of you will die.
Yeah.
That's nothing short of evil.
Right.
And then he says, show me a patriot and I'll show you an honest man. Jeff, what do you think of that line?
That's one of the ones I had wrote down in my own personal notes before I read your notes. That one struck me because I immediately disagreed with it.
Right. It's clearly manipulation.
Yeah.
Even if he believes it, he might believe it.
Right. But he's trying to invoke that fire of I need you to have the patriot mentality. So I'm going to say, if you can be this for me, you'll get a backhanded compliment. And I'll assume that you're being honest because I know you're a patriot and you're doing as I'm thinking you should be doing.
A patriot as I define it.
Right. And it's hypocritical. I mean, I don't have to tell you this. It's very hypocritical. Just in the least of just, it's manipulative, which is the opposite of honest.
And what do you think of the response? Kirk Douglas's response.
Do you have that wrote down?
So he quotes another man that serves him. Patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel.
Kirk Douglas.
What do you think of that line?
MVP. I like it.
You like that line?
Is the last refuge of a scoundrel. I haven't heard that word in a while.
I think I dislike this line, but not as much.
Oh, you didn't like this one?
Yes, because in my experience, a lot of people who lean on patriotism as a crutch are doing it honestly. They don't recognize that it's a manipulation. Mm-hmm. Now, do people use patriotism to manipulate and cudgel people into compliance? Absolutely.
100%. I'm still seeing that today.
Yes. And for those people, refuge of a scoundrel. 100%.
Yeah.
I do not like any of the presidential candidates as it stands.
I second that motion.
If it were to come down to my ideal Democrat, my ideal Republican, it would, as of right now, be RFK against Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't think that's our likely results.
No, we couldn't be that lucky.
Trump recently did a town hall with CNN where he made the journalist look like an absolute fool. So much so that CNN will not air clips of it in its entirety. They won't air it in its entirety.
So much for unbiased news.
Mm-hmm. And in response to their own town hall that they really dropped the ball on and made him look better, to be honest, they're talking about it and they're they start to, it's really funny how they flip narratives, because he called the cop that shot Ashley Babbitt in the neck a thug.
Mm-hmm.
And then CNN is like, how can you call a police officer a thug? Well, I'm old enough to remember when you said that the violent riots against police action were justified. Well, so which is it?
Yeah.
Right?
Make up your mind.
You make up your mind. So this kind of like, we love law enforcement patriotism.
If it benefits us.
If it benefits us. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Good law enforcers don't enforce bad laws.
Right.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
In America, law enforcement has the constitutionally defended right to choose which laws they enforce.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're enforcing bad laws, you're not a good law enforcer.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And that comes back to the patriotism. So if you're saying, actually that comes back to Nuremberg defense. Well, if I'm just following orders, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. Well, if I didn't do it, some other officer would do it. Sorry, that's not good enough.
I think with that line, I think like the reason why maybe I would adhere to it a little bit more too is like there has been, I mean, and I know we've talked about this before, like these last couple elections, this last couple, going about 10 years now politically, just this ruthless out for blood type of just portrayal between our candidates and just the people in political. Like
I don't think that's new.
It's not new, but it definitely seems heightened. Like, cause I mean, I've been able to vote since the first Obama election.
Okay.
So I've been observing politics since 2008. I turned 18 in 2008. I remember watching those debates because like I was fresh, like, ooh, I get to vote. I'm actually going to care for like this first election. Then it went downhill for a little bit. I stopped caring for a little bit. Then I'm now back into it. But I remember watching those debates and just remember like, for the most part, they were cordial to each other. Like they answered the questions. There wasn't interrupting the the moderator. It was a, from what I remember, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but like,
tell us why we're wrong.
Huh?
Tell us why we're wrong.
Like, seeing like it seemed like everyone was respectable for the most part from what I remember. But the Hillary-Trump election, the Trump-Biden election, nothing but just arguing, being rude to the moderators, being rude to the audience. From my adult perspective, my active in politics perspective, it's escalated. I know this isn't the only time where it's been ruthless and it's been inappropriate and it's been just these last two elections just seem rude and unattractive. Like I want to see two candidates go up who disagree but can talk respectfully, have a respectful debate, and then walk off the stage with both of their credentials still in hand. It's still intact. And I have not seen that the last two elections. That's what I want.
Are you familiar with the term recency bias?
You know me, Nelson. I am not. No.
Give me your definition.
Recency bias?
Yeah.
Recency. So I mean, word. So recent. We'll take out the word recent. So current bias. So I'm biased because of current standings.
Yeah, you're close.
Like because of current climate, I have a specific bias, not taking into consideration the overall history of it.
Yeah, you got it.
Definition.
So, recency bias refers to a cognitive bias where individuals tend to give greater importance or weight to more recent information or events when making judgments or decisions. I know you've been reading through biographies of different presidents.
I'm on the 8th president right now.
I'm sure in that you've covered some of the election cycles that go with them.
Yeah.
They were ruthless then.
They were ruthless. They were, yes. Like the thing
it wasn't just, I'm going to prove I'm a better candidate. Right. It's, I'm going to destroy your reputation.
I'm not going to disagree to that. And I definitely know I'll be reading more of that as I move through these biographies. But like, and that's not something I was unaware of too. But like, what I'm learning from these other biographies that I've read, and like whether I like the president or not,
right? By
the end of it, in these biographies, or some of them are like, you know, in these journal entries from the people that I'm writing the biographies about, like they talk about how like they still have a reverence for, they still have a respect for. Like I feel like Hillary Clinton will never write in a journal that we're going to read post her death about how I didn't agree with everything he said, but Trump was like I don't think we'll ever see that sort of camaraderie. But like there was something about the founding fathers, which I'm still in that era of presidents. By the end of their life, as at the end of these biographies, there's still like this adoration that's put into the, like, that acknowledges these people. Like, yeah, they didn't get along, they didn't support, but It's like because some presidents even they became friends post their time in government. Like
Right.
I don't think we'll see that with Trump, with Biden, with Hillary. Like it's like
Well,
like there's something uglier with what's going on now than what I've currently reading.
I would like to point out it's almost to the contrary, where Trump was at Hillary Clinton's daughter's wedding
When was this?
when she got married.
I need a date.
I don't know. This was before either of them were running for president. Right?
Okay, that's different. But
Kind of my point is like it's almost the opposite, where Trump was friends with all these people,
Right, and
until he entered
burned
politics.
his bridges,
Until he
yeah.
entered politics.
yeah,
I mean, how familiar are you with quote unquote professional wrestling?
like WWE, WWF.
Yeah.
I never watched it, but I'm very familiar with a lot of the names, a lot of the. Now, I'm not familiar with many of the current wrestlers, but like if you go back to like the 90s and the 2000s, early
Yeah.
2000s, I can name a bunch of the.
Are you familiar
participants.
with the terms face, heel, and kayfabe?
No, I know cage match, table, and oh my gosh, what is he doing?
So,
And can you smell what the Rock is cooking? That's the other one.
and when glass breaks in the
And remember Austin 316.
Yeah. Okay, so face is a wrestler who is a good guy. He's a hero.
That's a specific person, or it's an idea of a person.
Idea. It's,
gotcha,
it's
okay.
a broad brush category.
Okay.
Heel is the opposite. He's a
Okay,
villain.
face, heel. Okay.
That's where we get heel turn.
Okay. From
Right?
wrestling.
Yeah, it's a guy that was a face becomes a heel.
Wow.
He's also face turn. Guy
Okay.
that was a heel becomes a face.
Oh. Underdog.
Kayfabe is, and it's less common now.
Is a band from Korea, right? Kayfabe.
Should be.
Like 17 Korean people
That all look
a pop
identical?
band. Yeah, in a pop band.
And they don't just look the same because they're all Korean. Like they all have the
dress
exact
the same.
Yeah.
Same haircuts. Yeah. And
But all Koreans look the same.
Yeah.
So kayfabe is when wrestlers outside of their television show, outside of the ring, can maintain the persona. So a heel who meets a kid in the street continues to be a jerk.
Mhm.
And they do this to protect the quote-unquote authenticity of the story.
Mm.
When I look at Donald Trump and how he behaves, all I see is kayfabe and heel. Especially when you compare it with like footage that we have of him in the 80s. It's a totally different person.
Yeah, Home Alone.
And people... No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And here's the thing.
And I had a positive.
And here's the thing about heels,
Yeah.
right? People love heels.
Yeah.
But you got to be a good one.
Ducks love the heels of loaves of bread.
And actually, heel, face, and kayfabe is making its way into UFC as well, right? Where you've got these fighters who like they've got kind of middling personalities, and suddenly out of nowhere they're being either incredibly nice or huge jerks on Twitter and building a brand around a personality that's not actually who they are.
It's
Exactly,
fabrication.
and it's just really good branding.
Yeah.
You can't say Trump's not good at branding, right?
I've never said that.
Right? Like, there's a lot of things he's not good at.
Yeah.
Branding is something he's very good at. That's part of his brand. So you might almost argue he's great at it.
It's true.
So when
It is iconic.
when I see Trump, I just like
Tanning.
it's all heel and kayfabe, right? And I think he's a bad guy, right? Like I think he's legit. Like you look at his record as far as like extramarital affairs, all that stuff. He's a bad guy.
Yeah.
But people,
Not a fan.
I think people have just kind of gotten sick of like these politicians who pretend to be good guys and aren't.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, here's a guy that's not a good guy and he's leaning into it.
Little Western mentality. Like
Yeah. Are we way off subject?
we could be. My attraction to Trump back when he first announced his initial run, I liked the idea of having a businessman in
This
in
was all from
politics.
Patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel.
Like,
Yeah,
I like,
still applies.
like there was an aspect like back before I knew how it would turn out.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, it'd be nice to have a business person in politics for a little bit. Like change it up. Be nice to get out of the politician. Like Trump very quickly leaned into the politician lifestyle very quickly versus like staying a businessman in politics.
I don't know. He
became a politician.
with that CNN town hall, he's like, "You're a very nasty woman. Everybody knows you're a nasty woman." That's not a
It's a
politician.
great impression.
It's a terrible impression.
I love it.
I looked at you and I said, "Wow, what a nasty woman." Everybody knows it. So yeah, I think that I sympathize with the statement that patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. My only like where I pull back from that is that your average patriot isn't using this to manipulate people.
Right. Good job bringing it back in.
Thank you.
Sorry I took us off course.
No. I think it's all very applicable, right? Trump has used people's patriotism. Biden's used people's patriotism to convince them to do things that they otherwise wouldn't.
And it's to evoke emotion. Like it is to evoke like
it's to manipulate.
Like
the Patriot Act. That's an incredible example of just wild overstep of the Fourth Amendment that we would never, ever, ever allow. But they made it about patriotism. Yeah. Now we have to.
The Patriot Act, yeah.
They made it about tracking down Muslims.
Yeah.
And everybody was for that, apparently. And now we know that they're using the Patriot Act to get into Catholic churches and Protestant churches. And it's like, oh, wait, we're targets now? It's like, well, yeah, of course this is going to get used against you.
They wrote in a loophole. And then they made that loophole.
They didn't write in a loophole. They left it broadly undefined.
And then they made it emotional, to be emotionally manipulative.
Yeah. There was a line. I didn't write down who said this.
Okay.
We don't want to... Oh, no. Here's who was the line. So Scarface, Kirk Douglas, and Scarface's boss having that little brunch to talk about what they're going to do for this court-martialing.
Right.
And Kirk Douglas says, well, why not just kill them all? And, of course, he's making the reductio ad absurdum argument of, if you're going to kill any of these guys, they're all equally guilty, kill all of them. And the guy says, well, we don't want to slaughter the French army. Well, then why are we killing any of them? Why are we sending them into a battle where we expect 60% losses? That's slaughtering the French army.
Right.
That line made me so angry. And it was one of those times where I got angry. I'm like, I know that this is here to make me angry. And so I get what you're doing, but like,
Yeah, slaughtering doesn't mean 100% of the people. Like you know, like it's just So I get that. Like it doesn't have to be all of everything for it to be a slaughter.
Exactly, exactly. You're sending these men off to their death who don't want to even be there. Yeah. That's slaughter.
Yeah,
that's slaughter right there.
Yeah, it's like that scene in Babe.
Pig in the City.
Yeah,
yeah. Two pig, two city.
Bah ram you, Nelson. Bah ram you.
And then if we get into the courtroom drama. And I thought the courtroom scene was really interesting. I expected it to be more of the movie. It was kind of brief.
Yeah, I actually wanted more courtroom. So one of my favorite,
but it was almost a powerful to the fact that it was so quick.
Yeah,
there's that line: "Don't take up the court's time with technicalities."
Yeah. Is that when they talked about how? They were arguing about
He wanted them to say what these men were being charged with,
and he's like, "Medals are no defense." Can you say that line for him? We're talking about like. His recent cowardice versus the rest of his life where he's proved his loyalty, and you're going versus this one thing where you're considering it cowardice, but it's just him just being.
So Kirk Douglas is making the character witness defense for this guy of saying, "Hey, this guy's got a long record of being very brave.
Yeah.
Why are we trying him for cowardice?" And the court-martial director says, "The soldier is not being tried for his former bravery, but his recent cowardice. Medals are no defense." Well, then what's the point of the medals?
Yeah. Evoke emotion.
Yeah. And it's part of brainwashing.
Yeah. It's a status. Even if that status isn't real, it's a status.
It's like when you work in a corporate environment and they're like, oh, everybody's doing such a good job, we're going to give you a pizza party. It means nothing.
Grammys, Emmys, Oscars. It's status.
Yeah.
And
ultimately means
IMDb
nothing.
rating. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. And
this podcast.
If this podcast is a status symbol for us, Jeff, we are making some missteps.
Man.
Yeah, and then the ball gala event, the evening before the execution, it's so opulent.
Yeah.
And these men,
it makes him villainous. Not just like a villain in modern day, but like a Darth Vader villain. Like it makes him just intentionally malicious, you know?
Now, what's really interesting is that the French had their revolution around the same time that America did. Mm-hmm. And as one of the results of that revolution is that positions of authority within the military were not a result of aristocracy. In almost all the other armies of World War I, America basically excluded, all of those commanders were a result of aristocracy. They were born into privileged situations where their life wasn't at risk. So the men in the ballroom, to some extent, had actually earned it.
Yeah.
But most of these ones that had earned it is because they'd enlisted. And so they got in early. That's how you get into these positions. It's the same true as actually in America today. If you enlist early, you go to captain school or cadet, whatever the training is, you can get into an officer school. You can get into an officer rank real fast. And so you don't have to see live action to get ranks.
Right.
So it's evil,
playing the
man.
system.
It's absolutely evil.
Yeah, no, sort of kind of moving on to a different thing, but just talking about just the impact that this movie's had. I took this from IMDb, but Winston Churchill said that this film was highly accurate depiction of trench warfare.
Yeah.
And the sometimes misguided workings of the military mind. So Winston, like, pretty prolific. I mean, he knew his way around politics, and and he saw a war or two. Like
Drank like a
for him to go.
friggin'
For him
fish.
to go, this movie was accurate or had like something. I just want to throw that in there, like just
Yeah,
the things that we watched.
The
like,
line of sometimes misguided makes me pretty upset.
yeah. Oh, it's sometimes misguided.
Yeah. The Scarface's boss says to Kirk Douglas, judging from the casualties, the efforts of your regiment must have been considerable. Is that how we measure effort? By how many men died? Nothing short of evil. And again, it's one of those lines where it's just there to make me angry, but it works.
Now, okay, we're watching this movie play out through the French. Like these are all the French.
They're all French, yeah.
Yeah.
None of them
It's
sound
the French
French.
military. No, not even French accents.
They all have British or American accents.
Yes. But like, do you think? Okay, so the movie came out in 1957, but it's depicting World War I.
Yep.
But do you think this was taking place in all the militaries? Do you think this little snapshot of what we're seeing in the French army, do you think this is a one and done, or like do you think this happened in other military regimes as well?
Have you ever watched the movie The Enigma Code or The Enigma Machine?
I've not heard of that. Is that Kubrick?
So no, it's not Kubrick. So the point of the movie was to talk about how Alan Turing was a homosexual man, and because of the laws in Britain at the time, even though he was a war hero, they arrested him because he's a homosexual. And then the movie kind of flashes back to his record as a war hero. And the way he was a war hero is he broke the Nazis' code by building basically the first computer.
Oh.
Brilliant movie, strongly recommended. The first time they break the code, they track a Nazi attack, and they prevent it. Using that same code, find out the second attack. And Alan Turing and the other cryptologists say, we can't prevent this one. Because if we prevent this one, that's 2 in a row, they'll know we cracked their code. And so we now, from here on out, we're going to keep cracking the codes. We'll know of all of their plans, but we have to be very specific in which ones we choose.
Let some in, let some out. Ugh.
And that's a grim reality of war, which is why war is fundamentally evil.
Yeah.
I want to take a step further back to another example. In a lot of industrial environments, minor injuries often go unreported. In some industrial environments, a minor injury unreported is an immediate fireable offense. Cut fingers and skinned knees, as long as that's the lowest level injury you're having and people are aware of them, they're preventable. But when they start going unreported and it becomes an allowable injury, well, that means the next rung up injury is now the reportable injury, if that makes sense. Slippery slope is one of the few logical fallacies where we say the name when we're saying what's happening. But the thing is, slippery slopes happen. And so these things tend to snowball. If you start to allow it, they kind of get away from themselves and take on a life of their own.
Yeah.
So,
give an inch, take a mile.
We know of this story, and it's an egregious mistrial of justice. But definitely, like, just by the nature of the fact that there are some that we don't know, we also don't know how many of these stories we don't know. Right? This is just one we know. We do know that these sorts of war crime, friendly fire, casualty, mistrial of authority, like these do happen. We know these happen in every military in the world. The extent to which they happen, debatable, because we only know about the ones that we know about, and we know that there's ones that we don't know about.
Right.
Right? It becomes a situation of like the ones that we turn our head from and say, well, that's an allowable one. That makes way for the next rung up to become the one that we report, and like it's a slowly building thing, you know. I think it's in the list, and so we'll eventually get to it. That Tom Cruise, Nicholas,
Few Good Men.
yeah, where they're beating the guy with the soap bars.
You Can't Handle the Truth.
Yeah, that one. Events like these happen. You know, hazing happens. Group punishment happens. Those are unjust. And those things scale in time. So to answer your question, yes, these happen. No, we don't know about them. Yes, it's a problem.
Someone knows about them. Few Good Men has been in the top 250.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, yep.
Next line I want.
What you got?
Troops crave discipline. One way to maintain discipline is to shoot a man now and then.
I agree with the first line. Troops crave discipline. I feel like that's one of the things that's attractive to me. Like being someone who never wants to go to the military. Like there is something.
Keep in mind, these are conscripted men.
Right. Okay, I'm thinking broader.
Mhm.
Okay. Let me. For the movie purpose, troops crave discipline.
These men that we've forced to be
Okay,
here want to be disciplined.
These troops will not. Yeah, these troops. Yeah, this is completely false for specifically this group of people in this movie. As a life truth and bias, I think there is an attraction to discipline or structure or some sort of like.
I mean, if you make the question, is discipline good for you? Yes.
Yeah. I think that first line is factual, can be factual. One way to maintain discipline is to shoot a man now and then. Yeah.
Also true.
That's just bad leadership, though.
But it is true. It's it will work.
It will work, but that doesn't mean that's the only way.
You're ruling through fear.
Yeah. You can still discipline without violence.
Now,
or fear mongering.
keeping in mind that these are conscripted men and taking away the line, troops crave discipline.
Mm-hmm.
If we replace crave with must be, troops must be disciplined. One way to maintain discipline is to shoot a man now and then. I think all of that becomes true. Right? Conscripted men need to be disciplined. Well, if you're going to have people that don't want to be there, yeah, you're going to have to discipline them.
You have to threaten them.
Right? So, like, if you're going to do the evil of enslaving these men, then you're going to have to do the further evil of disciplining them.
Yeah.
And in order to discipline them, you're going to have to do the further evil of just wanton murder to keep people in line. Because pain is a powerful motivator.
In this time in history, 1914, 1915-ish.
Yeah, this was March 1915.
Were other armies conscripting as well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so like
the draft is conscription.
Right. No, I know that, but like at this time,
yeah,
like I'm not familiar with this time in history. So like I don't know. Like,
no, everybody
was America drafted as well? Like drafting for this war?
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone
both was world wars, everyone was conscripting.
Okay.
Anybody that was involved was conscripting.
Okay, they were pulling from the. Okay.
Were there people there voluntarily?
For America, yes.
For all of them, yes.
Okay, so there were okay.
But for all of them, more than half of them. Like
is that stated in the movie?
Overwhelming
do they talk about the conscription in the movie?
No.
So that is a huge point that makes the movie even heavier. But if you're watching this movie without knowing that those guys are all conscripted,
and the original intended audience would have known that.
1957, possibly.
They just got out of World War II. The Great War is still in people's memory.
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So the intended audience would have known that, but it's not told to us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so if you're watching this modern day,
you might miss that line.
You could miss some of the depth of this. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And here's the thing, right? If men are there voluntarily, well, then they don't need to be shot.
Yeah.
To maintain discipline.
Right.
Because you're compelling them with something else.
Because they're already wanting that discipline.
Yeah.
They're already wanting that military structure, that lifestyle. Yeah.
Right. They're there of their own choice.
Two different sides.
You're going to motivate
coin,
them with other things.
Yeah. Rations.
Or we'll give you we're going to give you a bonus if you're willing to take on this dangerous mission.
Yeah.
Right. For if you're a private contract military.
Smokes.
Yeah.
Contraband. I'm thinking of prison.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of prison. Yeah.
Methamphetamines.
Shanks.
All right. This line just Scarface says to his boss, "The men died wonderfully. There's always that chance that one of them will do something that will leave everyone with a bad taste. This time, you couldn't ask for better." And he's talking about the 3 men that he just had executed because of his own cowardice.
Right. Right. And if I was him, I'd be pretty happy too, because I just got off scotch-free. You know, except for his conscience, he wiped the blood off his hands and he swept it all under the rug. So, I get his positivity about it, but yeah, that is a very
But that
dark line. Yeah.
There's always that chance that one of them will do something that will leave everyone with a bad taste. Like, if I had been watching a Mel Brooks movie, and I love Mel Brooks, this line would have made me laugh.
Yeah.
Right? Because like it's very in his style.
Yeah.
But because it's Kubrick, and I know it's satire, but it just doesn't hit like a joke.
Right.
And
Which
just makes me angry.
And I think it hits the way it's supposed to then because of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, Kubrick, again, I mean, we've talked about him countless times now. He's a great writer. I mean, now I'm going to go to the movie here real quick. The screenplay also had 2 other writers on it. But it just, I mean, he's great at dialoguing.
Yeah.
Like, even if the dialogue doesn't age well, like that dialogue still doesn't lose its power. Like, so like, that is something that he does well in all the movies we've watched. This is the 3rd Kubrick film we've done.
Yeah.
Even in the movie that I completely detest, the conversation was heavy. The conversation was valuable. The conversation is good. It just could have been done another way. I like Kubrick as an artist. I just don't like all of his art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the messages he's conveying. I just not necessarily like the way he conveys them.
Right.
Yeah. There's always that chance that one of them will do something that will leave everyone with a bad taste.
It's just, yeah.
Oh, man. Just scum of the earth.
Now, this kind of goes with what you're... finish your thought.
No.
Okay. So, the title, Paths of Glory, actually comes from a bigger quotation from Thomas Gray's Elegy, written in a country churchyard. And the full line is, "The paths of glory lead but to the grave."
Ooh, that's good. You know, especially on the heels of our conversation with Stephen Kent on The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Right? War does not glory make, or something like that. Yoda says to Luke about how being a great warrior isn't going to make you a great person, right? That's not the path to glory. Yeah. And the paths to glory lead to the grave. That's good, man.
Yeah.
I do love the line shortly after this where Kirk Douglas's character is called into the room, and Scarface's boss is like just laying out the details about...
I love how we just stuck with Scarface.
Scarface and Scarface's boss. Yeah. Laying out the details of how, like, oh, we've got evidence that you were bombarded and that you ordered a strike on your own men, and there will be an inquiry and blah, 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 blah. And Scarface gets up and storms out, but before he does, he says, "The man you stabbed in the back is a soldier." Okay, what about all of the men that you just had murdered? Mm-hmm. And the men that you ordered be bombed? Were they not soldiers?
Yeah.
And then, I didn't write this in my notes, but it did hit me pretty interestingly. Kirk Douglas then gets in an argument with Scarface's boss, because Scarface's boss says, you know, you played the game beautifully, right? Like, you got exactly what you've wanted, you played the politics. And Kirk Douglas' character's having this revelation of like, no, I just wanted to do what was right by these men. Mm-hmm. And the guy calls him naive for it and calls him a fool for it. And it's just like that further evilness of corrupt authority. And then, like, one of the last scenes in the movie is we have that German girl who is now a prisoner of war.
Do you know who that was?
Yeah, Christiane Kubrick.
Kubrick. Well, they were dating at the time.
Yes.
Yeah. So she wasn't Kubrick during the filming of the movie. But
I'm not certain of it, but I think the last soldier that we get a close-up on, who's got the unibrow and is crying, I think that's Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, really?
I think.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I do not know that. Can't confirm.
And then, do you have any more thematic insights for this movie?
I do want to say, like, so this movie came out in 1957. So you have World War I, you have World War II, Korean War, then this movie comes out.
Yeah.
Do you think this movie was needed to share the message of anti-war? Or do you think pretty much like do you think this movie was redundant when it came out? This is just me just kind of nitpicking or just like conversational. Like,
let me ask you this:
Do you think people needed to know?
War?
We are, yeah, we are.
I don't think that there's ever a bad time for an anti-war message.
Right. Okay. Then that goes to the next question: do these movies work? Like, do these messages work? Like, as much as like I appreciate the message in this film, because this isn't a movie for entertainment, in my opinion, in my definition of this movie. Like, this movie was not meant for entertainment. This movie was to establish a message, to establish a precedent. War is dirty. This movie didn't solve anything. So what do you think we've achieved from having this movie? Because like I'm glad it exists, but do you think any good has come from this movie knowing that we still go to war?
Yes.
Okay, what's that?
Remember how the French were incredibly embarrassed by this story?
Yeah.
I think that puts the French in a position where they think a little more carefully about how they treat their soldiers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If this changes even one mind, I think it's a story worth telling.
Kirk Douglas would agree too with his fat wallet.
This movie is more than just anti-war. Any war movie where a main character dies, which is every war movie, is anti-war.
Yeah.
But this movie is specifically exposing the corruption of power, the misuse of authority needed to compel people to do acts that they would otherwise not want to do.
Right.
So it's looking at war and the evilness of war from a completely different lens. Right now we're seeing in Russia, Ukraine, we're seeing Ukrainian men are not allowed to leave the country, and they're being forcibly conscripted into a war that the rest of the West, right? So Britain, France, America, Canada, we're continuing to fund a war that they pursued peaceful resolution for, and Boris Johnson went over there on behalf of UK and America to say, you can't. That's evil. That requires corruption. That requires misuse of authority.
Yeah.
People's pockets are getting lined for this to happen.
Yeah.
As mentioned earlier, I think Donald Trump's wrong on a whole lot of stuff. In the CNN town hall, she said, "Who do you want to win, Russia or Ukraine?" And he's like, "I don't look at it in terms of winning," which is unusual for him. He's all about winning. And he's like, "I want people to stop dying." That's an anti-war message that I can get behind.
Yeah.
And then none of this is to justify what Putin did. What Putin has done is terrible.
Right.
Right? But he was provoked. And yeah, war is bad not just because people die. War is bad because it requires force and coercion to get people to fight.
Yeah.
And that's a message that this movie tells really well.
To quote a iconic song, war.
What is it good for?
What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
Sing it again.
War.
We've touched on a handful of different things that this movie has in common with A Clockwork Orange, but one thing that I wanted to go back to real quick is Christiane Kubrick, the German singer.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
She is in both.
Okay, who is she in that movie?
So she's not in A Clockwork Orange, but she did a lot of the sculptures and paintings.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Clockwork Orange was 1971, so a good chunk of time later from this movie.
12 years later.
Yeah, so they were married because they were married up until his death. So because he had been married, Kubrick had been married before he met her. He got divorced, and then
she's still alive. Apparently,
well, that's news to me. But it's like so they would have been married for Clockwork Orange, and that's fascinating.
Yeah, and then
that movie was in moments visually pleasing, like artistically, but then other moments very unpleasing.
Well, most of the sculptures and paintings, if she was involved in them, are very provocative and in unusual ways.
But cinematically, like they were
fitting.
Yeah, it was fitting. Yeah, it was well done.
The song she sings is called "The Faithful Hussar," and all these men are humming along. So here's my German's terrible, but here's a rough translation: "A faithful soldier without fear. He loved his girl for 1 whole year. For 1 whole year and longer yet, his love for her he'd never forget. This youth to foreign land did roam, while his true love fell ill at home. Sick unto death, she no one heard. 3 days and nights she spoke no word. And when the youth received the news that his dear love her life may lose, he held his place and all he had. To see his love went this young lad." And it goes on and on and on, but it's kind of like an anti-war song, right? Like this guy goes off to battle, but what's really important to him? Not country.
Right.
It's those he loves.
You want to get into the recap? Are we there?
Yeah, let's get into the recap.
Okay. Would you recommend this movie?
I would.
I think it's worth a watch. Entertainment wise, I was not entertained by it. I didn't enjoy it. And I personally don't feel like I'm better for watching it. Like I already knew war was wrong, but I'm glad I watched it once. Like we said, it was rated as approved. Would you change the rating of this?
No, I approve it.
Okay, Nelson approves this movie. What would you give it in a PG to R rating?
I think war movies need to be at least PG-13.
That's what I do, specifically just for the execution scene.
I like the language. There's no nudity.
There was
like,
there was no blood or gore,
but there's some dark themes in this.
very dark. Yeah, and they do show the firing squad shoot. Like there is one scene of.
I was surprised
actual-
that we didn't get a scene of that guy shooting all those guys in the head like he was told he was going to have to do.
Yeah, right.
I was expecting that.
Right.
I was expecting the guy that he put there to be still alive, gasping for life, and make eye contact.
Yeah,
And they skipped that scene entirely.
yeah. Has it aged well?
I think it's aged very well. I think choosing to shoot it in black and white kind of gives it an edge there.
Yeah,
It gives us this antique, timeless feeling.
Yeah.
And also Kubrick's pacing was incredible.
yeah. I've talked about it before. There are some movies I hope are never remade. If they were to ever remake this one,
Yeah.
this would be one I wouldn't be mad about. I like that it's got that vintage, like I like the black and white. Like again, like Stanley Kubrick, great writer. I love the dialogue. If they were to ever go, we've remade Paths of Glory, I'd watch it. I'd watch the remake. I mostly watch movies for entertainment value. Like if they could make it more entertaining, like and more cinematic. This movie's not cinematic.
No.
As far as like on a big screen, like sound effects. Like I would want more of that. Because like you can have movies with heavy messages and also be entertaining. This was just one-sided. If they could make it multifaceted, like 1917 meets Paths of Glory, that would be great. I think it does stand alone well, being from 57 and the choices Kubrick made. But if they remade it, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
This would be one movie I'd like to see. I'd like to see it be redone.
If it were redone, I'd want it to still be in black and white.
I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that.
Would you put it in your top 250?
No.
I don't know that I would either.
This so can I get a little glimpse into my record keeping?
Of course.
Okay. All right. I don't want to do this every movie, but just so this is our 20th movie. And this movie falls in the bottom half of my 20 movies so far.
Yeah.
So assuming that it's going to project, this will not be in my top 250 once this list has maxed out at top 250. It wasn't a new message to me. Like there was nothing in it that I was like, oh, I'm glad I heard
I do like that it's a different take on anti-war.
It
Beyond
is.
just
It
war
is.
is bad.
Right.
It's also, and war requires this.
right. And it was well done. I have no qualms with it. Just the fact that Jeff personally wasn't entertained.
Yeah. I didn't know it was an anti-war movie going in. And from the title of Lone, I was expecting this to be a movie glorifying war.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was pleasantly surprised.
Are there movies out there that glorify war?
Yes.
Not just romanticize it, like Lord of the Rings or Chronicles of Narnia, stuff but are there movies out there that are war is good? I can't think of one, but is there a market for that?
Yeah, there's a huge market for it. There's a huge market for it. People love it.
Well,
So,
is there a movie out there?
yeah, Top Gun, for example.
Oh.
Right? You make heroes out of the people doing the war, and you don't cover the politics at all. You don't cover anything. You just say, wow, what a hero this guy is. Don't you wish you could be like him? Right? So yes, absolutely.
Would that be more military's good, or do you think Top Gun actually showed war is good? Because that's two different things.
I get that. I think that they blur the line intentionally.
Okay.
I agree that they're different things.
I haven't seen Top Gun in forever.
There's a market for defense
can't.
even without a government, right?
Right.
So there's going to still be these people willing to risk their lives, and I do think it is heroic.
Yeah.
People willing to do it on their own.
Right, for people they've never met. Yeah.
But they intentionally blur the line between the heroes that are willing to do this and war.
Okay.
I would not put this in my top 250. I think it's a great movie. I think people should watch it. It's a movie that, if I don't see it again for 20 years, if I don't see it again until my kids are old enough to digest it, I'm fine with that, right? And I watch it with them.
As far as Kubrick movies go, I liked Full Metal Jacket better.
The first half.
I would actually watch Full Metal Jacket again.
The first half.
I mean, I would watch the whole movie again. I wouldn't just stop. I would watch it all again.
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I liked it better.
Sure.
I liked it better. It ranked higher.
Yeah.
I don't think this one should be on the top 250. I don't know.
Yeah. Because of my biases, I'm glad it's there. I'm glad that people get exposed to it just for it being there.
There's a good conversation. There's good stuff. There's good stuff in it.
Yeah. And it's, again, I'd recommend it. I think people should watch this.
Yeah.
Not my top 250 movies of all time.
Yeah.
But I think that about does it for us.
It does.
There's a really great Tuttle Twins book.
Ooh, yeah, we haven't talked about them last couple episodes.
Yeah, we've been slacking.
Yeah.
There. Tuttle Twins does some great stuff, and they've got books about. There's a book called The Golden Rule, which, as you might imagine, it's do unto others what you would have them do unto you. In the TV version of it, the pithy line that they use for it is, "The way towards peace is for blowback to cease." Ron Paul famously talked a lot about blowback, and the way to find peace instead of war, because we're talking about anti-war today, is to pursue peace.
Yeah.
Tony Stark had the line of peace through superior firepower. That doesn't work, right? And that was one of the big messages of that movie. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
But join us in a week.
Yes.
Today we'll have Rick Lane with us.
It's so fun to say now.
For Lion King.
Yes, next week.
Next week.
And for all the weeks after.
Yeah. Until we die.
Until one of us dies.
Until I kill Jeff in a tragic murder-suicide.
Yeah. You'll never know.
Yeah. One of us will be painted like Clockwork Orange.
Yeah. Oh, man. Hey, this was a great conversation, man.
Yeah. Good one.
Yeah. We'll be back next week.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks for listening. We had a great time putting this together for you.
To join the conversation, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Silver Screen Biases.
And on Twitter at Screen Biases.
We believe in value for value, so if you found value in our show, we ask you to consider supporting us.
Links to our social media and support can be found in the show notes.